Hey, JD here. Welcome to the Mead House. You know, over the past several years, we've brought you over 150 episodes of mead making education, information, and entertainment. More than 100 guests have stopped by the Mead House, professional mead makers, medal-winning home mead makers, competition organizers, experts on yeast and honey, and brewers just like you and me have all visited to share their knowledge. Hey, the Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. You can help support the Mead House by joining the Mead House Keyholder Club on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for the Mead House. There's also a link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can become a keyholder. We've teamed up with some great companies to provide thank you gifts for your support. So get on over to Patreon, join the Mead House Keyholder Club, and get your own set of keys to the Mead House. You can listen to the Mead House podcast with your favorite player, and be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite listening venue. The Mead House, mead making entertainment you just don't want to miss. Well, Ryan ain't here tonight. Last I heard, he stopped to help a farmer in northern Minnesota fix a flat tire on his tractor, and then texted me that he was talked into driving the farmer's pickup back to the barn, which was some 20 miles west. Well, when he got there, he saw the farmer's elderly wife trying to get hay bales stacked up on the hay wagon, so he apparently found an old pair of gloves on the dash and told the old woman that he'd stack the hay up for her. And then, while finishing up, he heard a tremendous yelp, and the farmer had gotten stuck between an angry mule that he was trying to shod and the barn wall. Well, you can guess what that yelp was all about. Anyway, yeah, we'll find out what the rest of the story was when Ryan gets here next week. In the meantime, hey, welcome to the Mead House, and thanks for listening to episode number 209. 209 episodes. My God, Jeff.
Yeah.
Has it been
just
that
like
long?
We do this weekly.
Yeah, seems like we do this every week. Hey, you can check out all the play locations on the front page of the web house, themeadhouse.com. We're just absolutely everywhere. iTunes, Stitcher Radio, you know the drill. So, like I said, check them out, the front page of the website for more locations. They're all piled up right there on the left side of the screen. But hey, in this episode, it's Keezer night in the house. This episode, a great way to store your meads and brews is under the hood in a nice cold Keezer. And even if you've only got a couple of taps, you can store 3 or 4 kegs and some bottles. Jeff's in the process of building his, so we'll see how his build is coming along. And in segment 2, we'll get a Iron V update, and then of course in segment 3, this is probably the part that I love the most, is the social club. Of course, this is where we answer questions from mead makers with no formal expertise other than what we've experienced in our own brew house. But hey, all that and more here at the Mead House. But first, thanks to all of the Mead House key holders like Jason Moore, Man-Made Mead, Jacob Phil, Josh Myers, and Kevin McCann, a couple of the few of the latest ones here who help keep the Mead House podcast free. You too can become a Mead House key holder and simply click, let's see, I'm getting ahead of myself here. You too can become thank God we got the ability to edit all this, but I just might leave this one in for fun. But you can help support the show for, there's just something real about what we do,
Right.
You too can support the show for as little as $2 a month. We got some great thank you gifts to send out to you, plus a listing of keyholder only content. So get on over to patreon.com, search for the Mead House, or just, you know what, take the easy way out. Just click on the show notes in the on the website when the episode gets posted. Hey, what are we drinking tonight, Jeff? Tonight is bourbon night in my house. I'm actually two-fisting it, so I do have a mead and I've got a bourbon. First up is a Woodford Reserve Double Oak. I don't know that I've talked about this one on the show before or not. This is one of my, okay, I'll say it, my favorites, okay? I got a whole bunch of them. I don't have one in particular. I think I've said that on the show, numerous times. I've got lots of favorites. This happens to be one of them. Just like it says, double oaked, aged in 2 oak barrels. Starts out in usually a light to medium toast oak barrel, and then they switch it over to a heavily toasted oak barrel. And I'm telling you, what you get is just simply amazing. There's some dark caramel, even a slight aroma of honey coming together with it. Of course, you get that toasted oak, those vanillas that come through. It's a very rich and full-bodied bourbon. This is definitely a sipper, straight up, no ice. Drink it neat, like it is intended to. Now, I don't know what the mash bill in this is, but we do know that a bourbon has to be at least 51% corn. But I'm going to take a sip. I don't care what Ryan thinks. I'm telling you, I detect some rye in there, and it's very well balanced. I mean, this stuff, Woodford Reserved, double oaked. You get some dark fruits deep in there, a little apple, big time vanilla and caramels, like dark caramels, like those C's. Those dark candle, dark, what do they call little suckers? You know what I'm talking about? Those little C's candies, dark caramel suckers, Jeff. You know what those are? Yeah. Yeah, you get a lot of that. That's kind of the base. And then, of course, everything else builds off of that. But really tremendous stuff. Yeah, I really like this double oaked. Now, for the mead. When we were back there in New Hampshire, of course, I'm drinking a sap house here. Ash pretty much gave my wife the run of the place and said, just pick whatever you want off the shelf, take it home with you. Well, one of the ones she picked off the shelf was this Elderberry Maple. Now, she had some when she was there, really liked it. And I tell you, this stuff it's better served chilled. I got to tell you that right up front. I am drinking at room temperature just if I can get a little bit more out of this. But I'm telling you, I mean, the maple is absolutely right there. I mean, I get the maple and the elderberry. I mean, I never knew what an elderberry smelled like until I smelled this stuff. Good. It's really good. Give something for Ryan to talk about. I just took another sip. Not a lot of sweetness to it, which I really like. This is this is a mead that could be served chilled with a cheese plate or something savory. There is a level of sweetness to it, but I think a lot of it's a perceived sweetness because of the balance. Very fruity, and that maple is kind of comes at you a little bit underneath. But it's definitely there. So really good stuff out of Sap House. Evan, outstanding job, my friend. So, Jeff, what did you put in your glass tonight?
Well, I, too, am drinking a Sap House mead and have a beer in my second glass here. I have talked about the strawberry mead I'm drinking tonight, but I wanted to polish off this bottle before it started to oxidize because it's real nice. I mean, it's got it's just that jammy strawberry flavor. Very fruit forward, right up front, and like you said, Sap House does such a nice job with balancing the mead, where it presents it really faithfully to the fruit, without being cloyingly sweet, and has a nice. It's light, it's refreshing, it's tart, and unfortunately, the lightness makes me worry that it's going to oxidize even faster. So, hence the reason I poured out the rest of my bottle into a cup. So, this is still delightful, even probably a month or more after I opened it the first time out. Real good. And then in my other hand, I have one of my favorite parts about fall. I have a Hofbrau Oktoberfest beer.
Okay.
And
starting early, are you?
Well, the great part about fall is that this is a great time to get really cheap imported German beer from Costco for like $1 a bottle.
There you go.
So I did. And then it's light, it's refreshing. It doesn't have a lot of the caramel notes that you get in some Oktoberfest beers. It's a little bit more in the lager vein there, but I mean, Yeah, no, it's got a little bit of that caramel and biscuity note to it. Just light, refreshing, easy drinking. So
Wow.
I'm pretty happy with this.
That sounds good. Good stuff. Let's see here. Well, I guess first up, we're going to talk about your Keezer, and I know a kind of a project that can turn out to be. I built one myself, and it's you can get pretty involved in it. And so, how did you start yours? Let's just start in the beginning. What did you use as the base?
Sure. So, gosh, about 2 years ago now, my wife and I saw a small chest freezer on sale at Home Depot, I think.
Yeah.
And said, that we got some space in our utility room next to the washer and dryer. We could really use more freezer space. We should just get that. And then as we were moving, we emptied this freezer out to move it, of course.
Sure.
And lo and behold, we move into the new house, and for anybody that's not following this saga, we're in the process of buying my mother's house, the house I grew up in.
Yeah.
Well, she's moving to a smaller house, doesn't have space for her giant chest freezer, and so we could have 2 chest freezers, but that's overkill. And my wife is like, well, you should just do whatever you want with the smaller chest freezer, and we'll use the big one.
How many wives out there are there like that? I wonder, all you brewers out there, how many? I want to hear from you. How many of you have a wife like that? Huh? Wow.
Well, that or sell it for $50 on Facebook. So
no, you did the right thing.
Right. Yeah. No, this is the party, the party work that's going to pay off in dividends as we go in. So yeah, I don't have the measurements ahead of me, but it's got enough for three corny kegs. Mm-hmm. And then if I do, I've got my, I think it's a 2-gallon, little half keg. And it's got a little shelf inside where all the compressors and the different electronic components.
If it's the one,
I can put that on there.
Yeah, if it's the one, are you sure just 3? I don't know. Yep. The one that I've got, I don't know. Of course, I can't remember how many square feet or whatever the hell it is, cubic feet or whatever the hell it is. But I can get 4 full-size kegs and 1 short keg. Actually, okay, so I can get 4 full-size regular corny kegs, okay, in the bottom. On the shelf, I can put one of those little fat, it's a 5-gallon keg now, but it's not nearly as tall as the other ones. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I think so.
Yeah, it's not. It's a bigger diameter keg, okay, and it's a ball lock. All my kegs are all ball locks, and or ball valve. It's a 5-gallon keg, okay, and it sits. I can actually get 5 kegs in this one of mine. So I'm wondering, have you fitted your kegs inside? You know exactly how?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I measured that for size. It's actually kind of perfect. My plan was to have. So I'm building this kind of as this is a good start, and then it can grow with me, so to speak.
Yeah.
So there were 2 parts that I made for the Keezer build. The first one was the collar, and
right.
For anybody that's not familiar with this, you picture a chest freezer. It's basically a box with a lid at the very top that lifts off.
Yeah.
And so the way this works is that rather than drilling through the sides of the keg to put your taps and things in and possibly hitting refrigerant lines or something like that, you build a wooden collar that fits between the lid and the top of that box.
Right. Yeah.
So I did that one I did a little bit of a woodworking flex. So, I rabbited out some joints, used biscuits and all wood, so there's no like metal parts connecting on anything there, just so it's super durable. And
how did you attach it to the freezer now?
So for the freezer part, the part where the collar joins the base, the big box, that's in place with Quick Seal, I think. Yeah, Quick Seal,
okay.
Which is it's a combination adhesive and
sealant.
Yeah. So that part's there, and basically I just replaced the screws that held the lid, little spring hinge assembly.
Right.
I put those into the wood collar in the back rather than putting them back into the back of the
same
freezer.
thing I did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very common approach to it.
Now, so the other thing, I don't know about your freezer, but my freezer, I had to put a collar on it, otherwise the kegs wouldn't fit. They would have stuck up just past the top level of the freezer. So the door, and if I hadn't put the collar on, the door not a shut. So right. I had to put the collar. I didn't have a choice. So it's a 2x6. Mine's a 2x. Let me turn around and look. It's right behind me here. Yeah, 2x6. 2x6 collar all the way around. Mm-hmm. Now, when did you insulate the collar at all?
I have not yet. I'm kind of playing with it and seeing. I've got some of that silver, like aluminum faced pink insulation stuff.
Yeah.
From that I've just used around the house while I've been doing renovation work.
Yeah.
And I might put that in, but right now I don't seem to need it. So we're kind of playing it by ear. Wood can be fairly insulative, and I might hit it with some of that spray foam insulation too.
Yeah, I would suggest putting some sort of insulation on it, because I'll tell you what happened to me. I could not get my temperatures to where I wanted them to be consistently, and what was happening is I was getting a lot of heat loss through the wood. Okay, mm-hmm. It was sealed good. I mean, I built a custom top on it. Right. My taps are not in the collar. They're actually on a tower that sits on a wooden top that I built for it and insulated. So the freezer door is long gone. So it's not, that's like gone. Okay, somebody's that's in somebody's junkyard somewhere by now. So what I wound up doing was to be able to match the thickness of the wall of the freezer, okay, because obviously the 2x6 is not as thick as the as the total thickness of the wall of the freezer. So I used, I think it's 1.5 inch foam insulation. Typically seen, HVAC people use it all the time. People have used it to insulate their houses with even. It's just a aluminum backed foam board, right. And I just cut it to fit, and then just glued it to the 2x6, and so instantly my heat loss or my coolant loss went down considerably. So now I'm able to get down. I keep my keezer at 32 degrees. So consequently, my kegs are right around 38, 39, somewhere in there. So when you pour a beer out of my tap, it's going to be damn cold. So
far I've not had that coolant issue. We'll get into some of the roadblocks that I hit in this issue once we get a little bit further on, but. So one of the things that I added to my keezer that I'm particularly proud of, this has been in the planning phase for quite a while, and I forget what, like holiday or event or whatever it was, but I got some of those the Perlick adjustable pressure taps.
Yeah.
You know, the ones with the little lever on them, so that
Yep.
you don't have to have like 6 to 8 feet of hose.
Yep.
You can kind of just dial it in based on how your serving pressure is.
Yeah.
I've had those for a little while. Those are kind of the center of my build. Now,
Okay.
I've only got 2 taps on this, even though I could accommodate up to 4 kegs technically. My plan is just to have the 2 for now, and then I've got the little manifold for gas that will split into 3. The 4th one I'm either going to do as a like a low pressure for like still wine, or probably do like a nitrous tap for like Guinness or something.
Now on your manifold, did you put regulators on each one, or is it just a straight manifold with in and then 4 outs with no
it's
gauges?
Just a straight manifold. So
Okay.
yeah, it'll rely on the regulator from the CO2 tank itself.
That's what I started out with. And then I got to the point where, well, wait a minute. If I'm serving a stout, which is usually at a little bit lower pressure than say an IPA or a lager or something along that line. Mm-hmm. Okay. If I kept the manifold, everything was going to be at the same pressure level.
Right.
And so in order to alleviate that, I built my own manifold using just regulator parts and just, kind of stacked them up. So now each one of the kegs has its own regulator, and I'm able to adjust the pressure or shut them off. Of course, I'm sure you got valves on each one of yours too. Usually the manifolds come with that. But yeah, I can adjust the pressure individually instead of, all of them all at one time. So it's kind of something to look at in the future, maybe. If you get to that point, but I like the way you're going, man.
Yeah, well, and like I said, this is something that can grow with me because I've got spots for 4 taps, even though I'm only running 2 now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was the collar belt. I took my time with that one and did it nice. It's got a nice, like, kind of an ebony wood stain, so you can still see the wood grain. But it's real dark, and it contrasts really nicely with the white. The enamel finish on the freezer itself. Nice. The other part I did was like basically like some just a little like wheelie caster thing to sit on the bottom. Mm-hmm. And this is construction. Once I have the base finished, this might become like a fixture, and it might just sit somewhere. But for right now, I kind of like the idea of having something, we can wheel out on the back porch for parties, or if it starts to rain, I can just push that into the kitchen, kind of a thing. So I got some cheap casters from Harbor Freight and knocked together. This was all stuff I had in my scrap pile, some 2x4s and a piece of 3/4 ply. With a little bit of lip to hold everything in place.
It's kind of a dolly then. You built like a little dolly for it to set on then?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Fixed casters on 2 sides and the rotating casters on the other, so you can push from one end and kind of guide it into place. Yeah.
Cool.
And so, like I said, that might not be permanent, but for right now, between the casters and the base of that dolly, the collar, that takes it's roughly 34 inches high, I think. Yeah. And that brings it to right under 42, which is coincidentally the height of a standard bar.
There you go. Funny how that works out, huh? Mine too.
Yeah, I got something to lean on.
Yeah, mine too, except I don't have the luxury casters. I considered them early on, and I built the dolly and put the chest freezer up on the dolly, but my problem was the damn, now we're talking way over bar height. So that didn't work out, okay, because I had to come up off the ground almost like 4.5 inches, and that was just way too much. And so I had to set it back down on the ground. Oh well. That only just means I just can't roll it outside. So a big deal. There's other ways to take a keg outside for the neighbors and party night. So
and I've had to do that before, so I can always fall back on the previous solution for that.
Picnic tap and a bucket full of ice, right?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean that works. So on your let me ask you about your Perlick taps. Now, I started out with Perlicks, and I switched over to Intertap. I don't remember. There was some issue I was having with them, and I don't remember what the hell they were. God, don't get old. Crying out loud. But when I did, you know what? No, it wasn't that. Because I know. Do your Perlick taps have a removable nozzle?
No.
Nah. That was I think that's the one. That was my sticking point, and I switched over to Intertap. They have a removable nozzle, and you can buy parts. Like you can buy a ball lock attachment. You can buy different nozzles,
like a growler filler and things like that.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And filling. I've filled bottles from my tap very easily doing that. So that might be something you want to look into if you haven't already. I don't know if Perlick makes anything like that now or not. And I know there's different types of Perlicks out there too.
When it comes to filling like growlers and bottles and things like that, I'm really happy with my beer gun.
There you go.
It's really easy to swapsy-roosy the little disconnect from the keg to the disconnect that comes with the beer gun, and
there's your okay. So when I started out, I was exactly where you are now. Okay, I had this extra CO2 outlet for all intents and purposes, okay, off the manifold. And so, I also had the Blickman beer gun, and that's what I used for a long time. And so that extra CO2 tap provided my CO2 that I needed for the Blickman gun. So you might consider that too. I mean, there's your extra CO2 tap. I just kept the gun inside the freezer. So I mean, it was always there, ready to go.
Yeah, why not? Where you need it.
I mean, drain it first. Don't
Of course. Yeah, you got to clean that between uses, of course.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So you got your collar on, you got your taps in, and your beer line and everything. Any difficulties there? Getting the beer lines with the yolks and all that put in?
No. Everything has been pretty solid. And, this is the advantage of having worked at a homebrew store for a year and a half or so.
There you go.
I've helped a few people, troubleshoot and kind of just design their own keezers and kegerator setups and things like that. Kind of troubleshoot what's going on or replace their hosing and things like that. So that part was kind of old hat to me. I kind of just, that was easy enough to do. I did, however, run into two problems that have prevented me from actually enjoying my keezer so far, though. The first one is that I haven't actually brewed anything since last September. So I have empty kegs.
Yeah. Got a keezer full
my
empty.
immediate solution. I had, believe it or not, man, I had 2 boxes of fermentable stuff that got packed up and moved over here that I just hadn't gotten to for whatever reason. And part of it was, hey, we're moving soon. So, don't get anything started too soon. So in one of those, I found one of those, the cider kit, the kind you buy in a bag and you add like 4 or 5 gallons.
There you go.
So I've got one of those running right now. I figured that's a quick and easy one, and that'll be nice for fall because it's September.
Yep.
And that'll be ready soon. And then, I went over to our friends over at Brew Firm. I can never remember the gentleman's name we had on from Belgium. To talk about it.
Yeah.
But funny thing, if you go over to their website, brewfirm.com, I think, that coupon code Meadhouse is still good for a 20% discount. Just for anybody out there that's kind of curious. And I got 3 cans, so I also got free shipping for that too.
That's excellent. Well, very good. Okay.
Yeah. Now, that code does not work on Amazon anymore, but it does still work on their home website. At least it did when I ordered a week or two ago.
Yeah.
So another thing to think about out there, Mead House listeners. So I'll probably throw one of those into the fermenter as soon as I get this cider into a keg. And of course, like we talked about last time, I've got something like 3 gallons of cherry juice to play with too. So
there you go. Yeah.
Something like that too. So that problem is getting resolved relatively quickly. Then I had another problem though, because I have bees, and I hadn't moved the bees to the new house yet.
Oh boy!
I cracked open. Yeah, I cracked open my hives. One of them was robbed out, didn't have anything in it, and was in pretty sorry state. So that was just a loss. The other one, not only had it been thriving, the bees had actually gotten into the part of the hive where I had a feeder and built up their own comb, just wild comb. And I was like, well, guys, I got to downsize you so I can move you. So this has to go. And I wound up with, for lack of anything else to hold it in, a trash bag full of wild comb and honey.
Oh, wow.
Wow. You can't just leave that at room temperature because in addition to bees, there's all kinds of other stuff that can get in there. The small hive beetles and the wax moths and crap like that can ruin that if there are not bees there to protect it in the first place.
Yeah.
So the fix to that is to freeze it for 2 days.
Okay.
And so I needed a freezer.
Put it in the Keyser.
Yeah. Well, it's a functional freezer, so let's go. Let's go. And then to compound that problem, I came back this weekend, and I'm pretty sure that that beehive. I didn't get a chance to look at the surviving hive, but I'm pretty sure it's gone now too. Whether it was they got sprayed with something, or they just had their own kind of colony collapse or whatever.
Yeah.
There was very little activity where I had just like gobs and gobs of them out gathering every last little morsel of nectar and pollen they could, a week prior. So I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I was so busy painting this weekend I didn't get a chance to suit up and actually check them out. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to harvest all those frames too before something else gets them. So,
well,
that freezer is getting pushed into alternate use for the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was going to say the other nice thing about the Keyser is that I can hide bottles of beer all over the place in my Keyser. So, and that little shelf. Although there's that one funky little keg that sits on it, right next to it, I can stack up like 4, 5, 6 packs of beer, on top of one another, and just kind of lean them over against the Keyser wall and then leave them in there. So they're going to be nice and cold anyway. So it makes a good little storage, and honestly, mine is so freaking overkill. I don't need 4. Actually 5. I've got 5 kegs. I got 4 in the main part, 1 sitting on that shelf. That's 5 kegs. Right. And I've got 3 taps. I've got a manifold for a 4th tap, but I haven't got the 4th tap on there. And like you, I had been considering a very low pressure wine. My wife loves Pinot Noir, and so I was thinking about a low pressure wine. Just get bottles of Pinot Noir and dumping them in a keg, put some CO2 on top, and serving wine from a tap. How cool.
The
like a
resort
2.5
that my
gallon,
wife and I had our honeymoon had wine on tap. There was nothing fancy. It was a white, a red, and a blush. But you went over to like a gooseneck kind of tap and just filled up a wine glass. And this was the idea that you could do this was a revelation to my wife. Every year I'm making her like a 6-gallon batch of sangria, kind of based on whatever fruit wine plus anything else we had in the background. But rather than bottling up 30 bottles of those and finding space for it, toss most of that to a keg and just let her have at it.
Well, the other, for me, so I'm kind of, and I haven't even started mine yet. I had to go through, because we were gone so long, I shut down the coolant. I have a, well, for lack of anything else, it's basically an aquaponics cooler. If you ever go to a hydroponics, if you ever go to a place that has hydroponics, okay, chilled water is the best water for growing plants in a hydroponic environment. And so they build these water chillers. Okay, mine is a 1/4 horsepower, I think, which is like enough. Okay, I can get water all the way down to like 35 degrees. I can chill it down that far. So the idea is and all it is a vessel with a chiller in it. Okay, there's no pump or anything in it. You have to provide the pump and the reservoir. So it's basically a small little 2.5 gallon or so Coleman cooler that sits next to it, and a pump. 2 pumps are in it right now. One pump is hooked to the inflow and out, or the inflow to the chiller. So all it does is just circulate chilled water. That's all it does. Okay, so think of it in a hydroponics thing. You'd be circulating this cold water all throughout your hydroponic setup. Okay, all this does is just circulate it in and out of that cooler. And so the second pump, okay, obviously goes up to my fermenter. And I can chill a fermenter down. When I had the 2 buckets going at the same time, I could chill both of them down simultaneously down to about 58 degrees. And without any problem at all. That's running the 2 pumps, okay, inside, feeding both of the chillers inside both of the buckets. And so I'm not going to, in normal circumstances, if I wanted a logger now, I could logger without any difficulty at all. But it's so cool. So, but my thing is now, okay, with my new fermenter, I can go all the way from fermentation to carbonation. Okay. And then pressure transfer into a keg. Now, how does this tie into the Keezer? All right. What's better, okay, than to have a nice Keezer chilled down to where you can store, okay, an already carbonated beverage. All right. All you got to do is just keep it under pressure, and you're good to go for months, however long, right? And so I'm thinking in that terms. Have you given consideration to that at all? Of course, this would mean transferring everything from, going from carboy to keg, like I've done.
Right. I've given it a little bit of thought. Honestly, if the sale of the house is profitable as we're thinking, the first major upgrade on my radar is going to be one of those. I want to say the Anvil Foundry. I could be wrong, but it's one of those. Yeah. The like more or less like the names. Jeez. It's an all-in-one beer brewing system, essentially.
Like you're talking like the Grainfather or
exactly.
Yeah.
Except it's Anvil, so it's the Blickman off-brand.
Right.
It runs on 120 volts or 240 volts. You can switch between them. You don't have to pick one or the other.
Right.
Has a bunch of features. It also has an optional column distilling tank you can add to it.
Oh, nice.
And now I live in Missouri, which now, federally speaking, distilling is still. However, if my information is correct, and I need to research this before I jump the gun, the Attorney General here has basically said, don't bother looking into or prosecuting unless they're obviously like moonshining. So,
yeah,
for all intents and purposes, in Missouri, home distilling is legal, or at least decriminalized.
Yeah, I think it varies state to state. I don't know what it is here in California, but I see these little home distillery units. Actually, they're just stovetop things. I mean, we're not talking gallons here. We're talking a couple of liters, sometimes it just amounts to a couple of quarts, but maybe that's all you need, And if you can get a couple of 750 milliliter bottles out of it, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, and you can find those all over the place because there are plenty of things you can distill other than alcohol that are perfectly legal at home.
Yeah,
distilling water for various like appliances and things like that, or distilling essential oils. And there's all kinds of reasons somebody might want to distill. So it's not like the distillery is illegal; it's the actual distilling of ethyl alcohol into a grain spirit that's illegal.
Yeah.
And at that point, again, there are plenty of people that are doing it even though it's illegal because they're not stupid about it. They're not trying to make money off of it. They're just doing it for their own purposes, essentially much like we're making mead for us and our friends and family.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole, I mean, I mean, sometimes I watch these YouTube videos and these guys with these tremendous setups in their garage. I mean, we're not talking just 5 gallons at a time. We're talking 15 and 20 gallons at a time. And sometimes you watch these YouTube videos and it's like these guys are brewing every weekend. You have any idea how much beer that is? I mean, 20 gallons every weekend? Dude, are you kidding me?
I forget the channel, but there's a channel I've been following for a really long time, and he finally finished it. But his goal was to brew one of every style in the BJCP style guide as far as beers.
Wow.
And he switched to 3-gallon batches as opposed to 5 or 6 gallon batches because he had too much beer.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do with it all?
You can only feed your neighbor so much beer.
yeah. Even mine can't drink that much beer. But my God, so I just, that's one of the reasons why I downsized. I just couldn't see keeping both of those fermenters full. Now that and getting back to the Keyser thing. Okay, so I got 3 taps. All right, doesn't necessarily mean I got to use all 3. No. But it does make for a nice storage. Okay, like I said, the luxury that I'm going to have now with my new fermenter is I can go from fermenting to carbonation, and then I can pressure transfer into a keg, put the keg in the Keyser for storage, and it'll be nice and cold. It's already carbonated. All I got to do is just tap into it, and boom, we're done. So that's the nice thing.
There is something gorgeous to be said about having something on deck. The reason my Keyser has wheels right now is because my wife and I like to host parties, and as long as this Delta variant shit doesn't go completely south and cause even more lockdowns and whatnot,
right?
We've got a party planned for the end of the month. We've got another one around Halloween. I'm assuming we're going to have in-laws over for Thanksgiving or around there, so we're going to have social gatherings. And if the keg runs dry unexpectedly, there's something magical about being able to say, okay, give me 2 minutes. I got something else on deck.
So now that we got your Keyser built and we've got it tapped and we got the beer lines run and you run through 3 or 4 kegs, now it's time to clean the beer lines. Have you thrown any consideration towards that at all, or do you have a solution for that, or how are you going to go about that?
So as far as cleaning goes, and obviously my kegs have been sitting around doing the picnic taps and crap like that for a while, so I want to get everything clean before I put any product in it in the first place.
Yeah.
But so a lot of the little bits and bobs and things like that I purchased for the Keezer, I got from the homebrew store that I used to work at, Bucks and Barleycorn, and they happened to get a lot of their keg supplies from one of the biggest retailers of kegging and craft and whatnot in the country, Fox. It's like Fox Equipment or something like that. But they have an office local to Kansas City. They may even be based out here. I'm not 100% certain. And they have their own proprietary beer line cleaner that they like. My plan is basically to, whenever we need line cleaning, to have a keg, mix up some of the line cleaner into a keg, put it on the tap, basically run it through at pressure until it runs out, put it, collect that in a bucket or something, and then put that back in the keg, probably run it 2 or 3 times. Just to make sure that everything is getting run with some pressure and getting some agitation through it.
Okay, so when you get tired of having to refill the CO2 bottle after doing that 3-4 times, what I've done with mine is I rigged up a submersible pump. And again, the nice thing about the inner tap, now I'm not saying the Perliks are inferior, all right? I love my Perliks. Don't get me wrong, they're outstanding taps. The advantage I have with mine is that I can hook up a ball valve to any of the 3 that I got, and I use a pump, and I hook the line up to the ball valve on the bottom of the tap, and just crack the tap open, and then I'm able to circulate all the way through the beer line and have the other end dump into a bucket. And so it just keeps circulating. So, it's just a bucket full of beer cleaner, then, a little 5-gallon bucket, and it's probably not even 2 gallons, okay, of water with the beer cleaner in it. And I just set my pump down in there and it just keeps circulating until I decide to shut it off, That might be something you want to consider in the future when you get, like I said, when you get tired of filling the CO2 canister. That's the way I started, Jeff. And I'm telling you, after 3-4 trips because I've got 2 bottles. I got 2 5-pound bottles. Now I don't only have the Keezer set up. I've got aquariums that also take CO2. So so my big aquarium eats CO2 faster than my Keezer does. So
I'm sure it does,
I just filled it because it's always on. Okay, it's just emitting bubbles through the little deal in the aquarium, so it's always on. It's maybe a half a pound, if that, of pressure, which it's nothing. It's nothing really. But okay, when it's on 24/7. Okay, I guarantee you,
a little bit of the time adds up.
Yep, every month I got to take it back. Now it's only like $12 to fill the damn bottle. It's nothing, but it's just a pain in the ass. Got to disconnect everything, take the bottle out, go get it filled, bring it back, hook everything all up. It's just a big pain in the ass. So I'm considering getting a bigger bottle. But like I say, something you want to consider for your beer cleaner system. I'm kind of a DIY guy. We've run through some of the DIY stuff that I've done from my own little brew house here and before, like my cooling system. My God, I started out with block ice and a big Yeti cooler. And that worked. I got it down where I only had to change the ice, something like once every 7 days or something like that. And I was able to maintain some pretty low temperatures, but things evolve and you just try to come up with ways to make it a little more efficient. And my beer line cleaning thing, like I said, I got tired of refilling bottles after filling kegs up with beer wash, running them until they went out, and then they got to go get the thing recharged. So I came up with this whole, pump thing. There's plenty of YouTube stuff out there on this too. I mean, I'm not the only one for sure, but
No.
anyway, I like the way you're going with this. And if you can take some pictures of what you got going, we can put that up on the website too on one of the episodes as well. But
yeah, let me get some shots in here once I've got the harvested out of there.
When everything settles down and everything. But cool, I like what you're doing, and you're gonna love that Keezer. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait to just have something on tap anytime I want it. I'm gonna get spoiled, man.
Yeah. And like I said, it makes for a great a vessel to store bottles or other things in. So yeah, it's a good thing. All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as a kind of a side note there, I don't have the cooling system you did, but as Ryan and I hinted at one of those episodes where you were off on vacation, now I too have a cooling solution to do lagering temperatures if I so desire. So that's not something I've had the advantage of having prior, and I may just do that.
You know what? I'm telling you, okay, this is something that I considered, okay, since I had the cooler, okay, the freezer rather, all right, I thought, okay, so what's stopping me from putting a vessel inside the freezer, okay, with something that would keep it from freezing? Obviously, it had to be food grade, something to keep it from freezing, and running my pump from there, okay, to my cooling unit in my fermenter. Mm-hmm. So that's another, this is something. I don't know whether a lot of people out there with these Keezers have given any consideration, to go out and buy one of these, what you call it, what do they call those, glycol chillers for a grand. The chiller that I have, I got used. It was $350, so they're not cheap either. But a far cry from a glycol chiller. Well, there's a good alternative if you've got a Keezer at home, and you can find a way to, even if you had to store the water in a keg, okay, and figure out some way to just, all you want to do is recirculate that water. That's all you want to do, just keep it recirculating. Yeah. And be able to cool your fermenter. So all you guys out there in the DIY, think that up a little bit and let us know. Shoot us an email, info@themeadhouse.com, and let us know if you're thinking about something like that. And if you did it, I want to know about it. So good stuff.
This is a beautiful hobby for the people that like to tinker and play with stuff.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
We have both talked about our little tinkering solutions and things we have come up with to just make life a little easier for us in the brew world. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
When I was a teenager growing up, it was all about cars. I loved working on cars. And I thought that would be my hobby when I grew up. Well, I have no idea. I can't find my way around the motor of a car now to save my ass. So forget that. So I had to come up with something else. Anyway, hey, moving on here. The 411 on the Iron B. Where are we at? What are we doing? And anything we need to know, Jeff?
Yeah. So as of this morning, we are sitting at a nice round 60 entries. So things have slowed down a little bit over the break, but got a good number going so far. We've still got plenty of time to brew up something new. Remember, I want to say the deadline for getting something in is around mid-November. So you still got plenty of time to throw in a session strength and have plenty of time to tweak it and do every last little finishing step you want to before you got to get it to UPS or FedEx and get it over to Minnesota for judging. We have, like I said, 60 entries, and everybody should have their secret ingredients received by now. If you have not received your secret ingredient and you think you should have it, either because something got miscommunicated along the way or something got lost in the mail, shoot us an email, info@themeadhouse.com, or find us on Facebook. Just contact us, whatever way is convenient for you, and let's get that solved so we can get you squared away and get you making some mead. Because, I tell you, I think this has been one of the most interesting, initial reaction secret ingredients we've had yet.
I've been watching the emails. Yeah.
We've had some people that were like, "Are you kidding me? This is what the hell am I supposed to do with this? This is what the?" And then we've got
other people. It's like,
two or three times as many people like, "This is amazing. This is great. This is so cool." We're all over the board, and I love that. The division,
the enthusiasm, absolutely, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm digging it. And I tell you, we're pretty easy going here at the house. So if you're running into trouble, you got questions or whatever, just email us. info@themeadhouse.com, info@themeadhouse.com, and we're more than happy to work with you. So it's not a big deal.
Well, we can't tell you how to make a mead.
Right.
You should, if you're listening to the show, you should already know. But
exactly.
We can at least give you some encouragement and say, hey, take a step back or try some And I tell you, this is new for me too. I'm super excited about this. I am one of the organizers in this event. I can't enter because that'd be unfair. But what I've decided to do, because I'm so excited about the secret ingredient, I'm making a 1 gallon batch of what I would enter if I could, that I'm just going to have for the after party to just pass around and let people taste. I'm that jazzed about this that I'm in addition to just the regular mead with this ingredient, so that you guys know what this tastes like in a mead for the judges. I've got my own, what I would enter, complete with different adjuncts and different flavors and processes and things like that going on. I'm super excited.
Yeah, cool. Good stuff. All right. Well, this is my favorite part of the show always. And I love it when we, sometimes, we're trying to make it a point now that during our 6-week schedule that we devote at least one of those weeks to nothing but the social club. But this is my favorite part of the show. Absolutely. So we're going to kick it off tonight. We left off a couple of weeks ago when we left for hiatus, and we're back now. The first one up, this is a really long one, Joe, so I'm going to try to kind of paraphrase my way through this whole thing.
Sure.
Am I being impatient? Okay, so he's got something going, and it's in the carboy about 6 weeks or so. And looks like he wants to move it over to another carboy, talking about racking it off the sediment. So it seems to be concerned about the sediment. He's working with some Camden tablets and potassium sorbate, since he read that they work well together as a stabilizer. Okay. There's a few things he's not sure of, since it looks like it's not doing much anymore. In other words, it sounds like fermentation has stopped. Should I add the stabilizer now or give it a few more weeks or months? We'll try to answer that one as question number one. And then also I read that it could take months to clear up on its own, or should I get some kind of a clearing agent, which would be the best to give it time or use the agent? We'll make that question number two. And will the clearing agent affect the flavor? So that's question number three. And I think that's the gist of what he's got going on here. So let's deal with question number one.
Well, before we do that, there's the question of whether or not we need to move this, I think. And that's maybe question 0.5.
Okay.
Yeah. If your airlock activity is winding down, then you're probably getting into the end of your primary fermentation. You're probably right there.
Yeah.
And if you have the ability to see the leaves or the sediment, the crud at the bottom, then you want to be able to guesstimate how much you've got down there. If you're 6 weeks in, there's not a lot of worry about off flavors from the yeast, like cannibalizing itself essentially, autolysis and things like that. Because as long as you've been following a good nutrient schedule, they shouldn't need to do that. That said, if you got the rule of thumb in a quite literal sense, I use it, like if I've got a coat of crud at the bottom of my carboy, as thick as like the first joint of my thumb, around about an inch, then I start thinking about, do I need to move this over somewhere else? Mm-hmm. And obviously, there's a lot of different factors in there. If you're using like if you're using fruit, or if you're using like a fruit puree, you get a lot more crud built up at the bottom a lot faster. Yep. So you kind of get a little bit of leeway there. It kind of comes with the territory. But if you're just doing like a straight traditional or something without a lot of fibrous crap, that I find that rule of thumb is a good, I need to start thinking about this. Doesn't have to be immediate, but yeah, if you get to that point within about a couple of weeks, I'm probably moving something over.
Yeah.
That said, I think the next question was stabilizing chemicals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. What's the best kind of clearing agent? Would it be best to give it time or use the clearing agent? That's kind of up to the user, actually, for the most part. I would only use, if we're talking about something like a traditional, now this is actually, I'm going to do this in two parts. If you're talking about something along the lines of a traditional semi-sweet, sweet whatever, I would wait, because 9 times out of 10, it's usually going to clear pretty well on its own if you didn't add stuff to it. Okay. Now, the second part of this question, if you're working with something dark, let's say you did add some blackberry juice, and it's a dark colored mead, I'm not so sure that I'd worry about it clearing as much. I may let it sit for a while, obviously, to settle out whatever sediment there may be in it. But don't think I'm going to be that concerned about it being glass clear, at that point. So that's kind of my 2-point answer to that. Now, the clearing agent, I'm going to let Jeff tackle that because there's all kinds of stuff out there. And some I think are better than others. But Jeff, you got a favorite, right?
Oh, yeah. Hands down, solid, 100%. The one that I go to 9 times out of 10 is Dual Fine. It used to be called Super Clear. It's a 2-part guy. It's salt and chitosan. And the beautiful thing about it is that it is, frankly, it's dirt cheap. At the homebrew store I used to work at, we sold it for like $2.80 for a 5-gallon dose, a 5 to 6 gallon dosed batch. It works really, really quickly. You add the Kiesel salt first, and then the directions tell you to wait between, a couple hours to 12 hours. I usually give it a whole day, just for the sake of being thorough. And then you added the chitosan, and the chitosan takes another few days. But you get pretty close to glass clear, and it also does very little as far as stripping flavors. I have heard anecdotally some of these other options like bentonite or gelatin, things like that, can strip some flavors. From my experience, I have used gelatin to kind of tone down some tannic character to a mead that I think I over-oaked at one point. It's a real gentle kind of stripping flavor, though. You're not going to lose very much.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot to be concerned with there in general, but I've never had Super Clear, Dual Fine, whatever, take any like flavor character out of it. It's pretty much just grabbed onto anything that's been free floating and kind of cloudying it up, and it just holds it right at the bottom.
And then so initially he's talking about Camden tablets and potassium sorbate. Yes, you can use that combination to stabilize. But then down here at the bottom of his question, he's asking about back flavoring.
Right.
And, should I let the stabilizers work before adding anything? Well, yeah. Let those work for at least 24, 72 hours, maybe even.
So
And then
let's
stick an airlock on it. I mean, that's we want to make sure the fermentation is stopped, right? Before we backsweep.
Let's go over the process for stabilization. Because if you're sitting on a carboy and you've got like an inch and a half of leaves at the bottom, you're probably thinking you're done, but that's not the point you want to add the stabilizer to.
Mm-hmm.
The point you want to add the stabilizer to is the carboy you're racking into and leaving all that crap behind.
Mm-hmm.
The amount that you're dosing into your mead is for just the mead. It's not for that big cake of yeast that may be dead, may be dormant, whatever, sitting at the bottom.
Sleeping quietly at the bottom, right?
Right. If you're trying to divide that amount of stabilizer between the sleepies and the actives, it's not going to work as well. It's just not. What you want is to get rid of the actives and leave the sleepies in the last container. So you want to rack into a clean carboy or clean bucket or whatever vessel you're using. You want to add the stabilizer at that point, and then you want to put that on airlock, generally for 24 to 40 hours before you bottle. Now, I say before you bottle, you can back sweeten right after you stabilize. The end result is not going to be any major any major metabolism of those sugars that you've just added, because stuff's going to be fighting off the stabilizers.
Yeah.
You might get a little bit, but it's not going to be able to handle much. But the stabilizers are going to decompose or degrade or whatever the chemical term for that is down to a sulfurous kind of gas. So that's where you want to put it on airlock and let that just kind of outgas. Otherwise, you can get some sulfury, nasty crud in your bottle. So, yeah, just let that sit for a little while, let it do its thing, and Bob's your uncle.
Good stuff. I hope we cleared all that up. It's kind of a long question there, but good stuff. We always enjoy this kind of thing. So, next one up, Jeff, apple cider vinegar. There's a wild apple tree behind me in the woods. Got to look at him. They're getting close to being ripe. I'd like to make either apple cider or cider, but would also want to turn some of it into vinegar. I've got a strawberry rhubarb mead going. I want to hear from this guy. We need to find out who this guy is and get his email address and get it to Ryan so we can contact this guy and get him booked. I've got a strawberry rhubarb mead going now from Wild Yeast. And we'll be using wild yeast for this batch too. Have any of you made apple cider vinegar, or should I just make cider instead to make the vinegar? Will the wild yeast change anything in the terms of vinegar making after the cider is made? Oh, I got to fess up. I don't know the first damn thing about making vinegar. So
I got you.
You're asking the wrong guy here. Jeff, I don't know what you know, but I like where this guy's going, and I want to talk to him.
So I have a lot of theory. I've not made vinegar myself, but I have been tempted. I can tell you that you can buy a Vinegar Mother, which is it's the bacterial culture that you use, kind of like a yeast culture, for making vinegar. Essentially what happens when you get those bacteria going, it's acetobacter. So it turns the ethyl alcohol into acetic acid, and that's the primary thing in vinegar. There are homebrew stores, including Bacchus, that I used to work at, that sell those, and so people come in once in a while and like, hey, I've got a bunch of apple cider. I'd like to make some apple cider vinegar. Because have you been to the store and priced raw apple cider vinegar? It's crazy.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a draw for it out there for real, honest to goodness vinegar that's not been heavily processed and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could, and I don't think that the wild yeast versus a like a cultured yeast from a lab is going to make that big of a difference, because honestly, by the time the yeast are done doing their part, they're pretty well dormant. So it's the acetobacter is going to take over and do its thing, whether you use a wild yeast or cultured yeast or what have you. I have never played with making a mead or cider vinegar, but I know there have been a couple people out in the community that have been playing with that lately, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I would definitely be curious to see what this guy comes up with all his, his vinegar making aspirations. And side note, the new house that I'm moving into has a crabapple tree on the back.
Oh, dude.
So
oh my God.
Between the honey that I'm harvesting now and the crab apples that I'll probably have around November, December, I'm thinking this might be a good excuse for a Shouse House Estate mead.
I'm telling you, man, I had two of them in the front yard of the ranch in Colorado years ago. If I knew then what I know now about fermenting, dude, awesome crabapple trees. Melomel questions, also bottle conditioning. I'm considering making a couple of melomels for the first time, and I've got a few questions. I want to make a regular strength mead and a session mead with fruit, though I haven't picked which fruit yet, so that's kind of an important thing. I plan to add the fruit during secondary and leave it for 2 weeks. That's kind of an important thing too. Is it advisable to add a Camden tablet when adding the fruit? And if I want to bottle condition the session melomel, would I need to add conditioning yeast after the Camden tablets, or should the previous yeast, and he's using 71B, still be alive enough to carbonate? Big question right there. Is frozen grocery store fruit smashed in a mesh bag good enough? I'll answer that real quickly. Yes. Or am I setting myself for disappointment? I don't think so. It just depends on what fruit. Let me caution you on raspberries. Okay. Big time. Okay. We're not talking pounds of raspberries here. We're talking ounces of raspberries. All right. So be very careful with raspberries. That's enough said.
I don't know. I thought that raspberry thing you gave us was delightful. That was not too much raspberry for me, but my tastes tend to run a little dry and a little tart. So
I had a big time pucker factor for sure. Let's start at the top here. So session mead, I like where he's going there. I love those. Hasn't picked which fruits yet, and plans to add the fruit during secondary and leave it. I have no problem with that at all. Okay, provided it's the right fruit. You know, what's the right fruit? I don't know. What do you like in fruit? Okay, what's your favorite fruit? That kind of thing.
That's a big question.
And here's the bottom line. Okay, when you put it in, start small and go to big, because if you start big, okay, you may wind up with something that you don't like. So my advice at that point is to start small, taste. Okay, after a few days, if you need to add some more, but be very careful with it. Now about the Camden tablet, Jeff, he's curious whether adding the Camden tablet, should he add that before the fruit? We're talking the finished fermentation here now. He's racked into secondary.
Right. So not exactly finished, but more or less.
Yeah.
So the Camden tablet with your fruit is a great step for primary, because there is a lot of stuff on natural fruit, and you don't want that taking over your fermentation while you're waiting for your culture stuff to get through its lactase and get up to a usable colony.
Yeah.
Once you're already through the fermentation process, you've got north of 7% ABV, even in a session with 5 to 7%. There's a lot that's going to stop anything that might be hanging out on the natural fruit from doing much of anything in the first place. The other part here is if you add a Camden tablet to kind of stop the natural stuff on that fruit from taking over, you're also going to inadvertently stunt your current yeast. So you could do that. I don't think you need to do that.
No.
If you do that, when it comes to bottle conditioning, you are absolutely going to have to provide another yeast source, because the yeast you put the Camden on, they're going to be hanging out for a week, maybe not reproducing, and it's going to be a while before they get up moving at all, if they do at all.
Yeah, good point. To finish off here, is frozen grocery store fruit good enough? Absolutely. Like I said, be careful with raspberry, because that's a very, very, very tart fruit. If you're doing something on the session side, that pretty much means you've fermented all the sugars out at that point. Unless you intend on back sweetening, if you're going to use raspberries, there's a really tight balance there to get a nice raspberry flavor without making it a pucker bomb. So be careful with that. Strawberries, peaches, apricots. I mean, you're probably talking maybe a pound at that point. I don't know, but to me, this is a whole taste test thing. At this point.
Right. And the parting advice I will give is also to consider the water content of fruit.
Yeah, true.
I think the Steve Piazza's book, the name of which escapes me, I think it's like The Complete Guide to Making Mead or something like along those lines, but by Steve Piazza. He even includes a USDA chart of the average water content of fruit. And here's the thing. If you go with raspberries or blackberries or something like that, they don't tend to have as much water as, for example, peaches or apricots.
Right.
So 2 pounds of raspberries or blackberries is going to give you a lot of flavor. 2 pounds of peaches or apricots might not be enough.
Mm-hmm.
To drive the point home, if you've got very watery fruit, you might actually be diluting the alcohol concentration of your finished product by putting that much fruit in there in the first place.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. So that's another thing to consider. And to get the flavor content you're looking for as far as whatever fruit you settle on. I think berries are the best bang for your buck, because you can find them very easily frozen in just about any supermarket. They are very, very, they're well flavored. And so, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, they are very popular in this hobby for a very good reason, because they're just easy to work with.
There you go. I'm going to skip down here. I'm going to save the coconut blossom yeast trial for next week. That's a pretty lengthy discussion right there. And in fact, I might even throw that in on a segment 2, because that's a pretty worthwhile discussion. I'd actually like to see if we can't figure out who sent that in, and even get them on a show and talk to them about their experiment. But that's a worthwhile discussion right there. So we're going to save that one for next week. So there's your little teaser. Let's go on to the next one. Here's a new one. It's funny. Okay, worst hangover ever. All right, I made a strawberry thyme mead that is delicious. Boy, I love both of those flavors. I made some of this. I made this the same one before, and 5 gallons went away far too quickly because everyone loved it. The second batch tastes great, but will leave you with the worst hangover of your life. I mean, head splitting, nausea, I can't get off the couch for a day, and fuzzy brain for 2 more days. Wow, what a hangover, huh? What went wrong? It's not like I drank a whole gallon. But the question is, what did you drink before that? I'll split a 24-ounce bottle with my husband, and we both thought we might die. So this is so funny. So what he doesn't tell us, what was the ABV and how much sugar are we talking about here? That's the two, okay, the two things that contribute to the worst hangover ever, okay, is alcohol and sugar, right? So I don't know where to start here.
Man, the residual sugar is a killer. I know so many people, like got college and study abroad years where I drank way too much, and I've had plenty of hangovers in my time, and I've had plenty of friends with really terrible hangovers, and I know from my previous experience going out and drinking dry wine while my friends were drinking, sweet crap.
Boone's Farm.
I had a lot better time the next day because there was not that residual sugar fucking with my head.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't know the chemical combination of it, but I know from anecdotal and personal experience, residual sugar fucks with me in a bad way.
Yeah, I mean, this question may be unanswerable other than, because we don't know the two pertinent pieces of information. What was the ABV and how much residual sugar was involved here? I mean, of course, what else did you eat? I mean, you're sitting around with a plate full of candy bars. I mean, you're munching on chocolate dipped pretzels and drinking a sweet mead. I mean, I have no idea. But
were you doing yard work for a couple hours beforehand and kind of dehydrated first?
There you go.
These are factors that will contribute to your having a bad time.
Yeah.
The other thing, the slightly chemical thing that I will throw out here is that there is such a thing as sulfites, and we use sulfites to stabilize mead, but yeast naturally produce some themselves. It's just a fact of the winemaking, mead making, beer making industries that sometimes you get a little bit of sulfite there. Yeah. Even the wines that are marketed to be low in sulfites have to say no sulfites added, not sulfite free, because they can't be sulfite free.
Right.
They just can't.
Yeah.
So there are some people that are sensitive to that, and if the yeast produced a lot of it, or you overdid it with the potassium sulfite when you stabilized it, maybe that could maybe potentially have
contribute
an effect. But I mean, the science behind this is not 100%. As far as like how bad a hangover this causes, whether that's an anecdote or it's like an actual fact, it's far from solved. But from what I've heard, it's possible that more sulfites can equal worse hangover.
There you go. Digging this Elderberry Maple Mead, Evan Henderson. I know you're listening out there at Sap House. Okay, so first rinse. Okay, I had to read this like 3 times. I didn't quite get it here. It starts out, first rinse honey water. What the hell is he talking about? I've just started making mead and got my hands on a couple of carboys of first rinse honey water that I'd like to use for my next batch. It's the water used to rinse the leftover honey out of the combs. I had to, I'm trying to think before I read that far. I think, what the hell is he talking about? First rinse honey water. What are you rinsing your honey? I mean, how do you do that? Anyway, he's talking about rinsing out the honeycombs from the apiaries after the extraction and trying to get the wax out. Some kind of a process there. You might know more, Jeff. Definitely going to need a good filtering. Well, I can imagine. Probably a lot of bee parts and everything.
Right.
I've already threw some Camden tablets in to kill off anything that might have been living in there. That may not have been necessary. We'll get to that in a minute. It's quite concentrated as it is, so the current plan is to dilute it down to reasonable specific gravity and then just follow our usual recipe from there. Now, I don't know what his usual recipe is. He doesn't define that. Has anyone ever worked with honey water before? Anything you can suggest for things to look out for or not to do? We're mostly making short meads at the moment, looking for a nice sessionable product at the end. Let me go back to the Camden tablet and the gunk that might be inside. The gunk inside may not be a bad thing, okay? I don't know if a lot of people out there understand the whole hive fermentation, right? I think we might have, I mean, it might have been like I don't know, 300 shows ago. Where are we not? Where are we at now? 210, 209? Maybe 100 shows ago or more. We talked about whole hive fermentations. We're talking whole hive. Okay. That means taking the thing out of the hive and putting it in a permanent, basically, for all intents and purposes. We're talking bee parts, whatever came with it. Okay. Not going to hurt you. So, yeah. Jeff, you can expand on that a little bit. So I don't know that the Camden tablets are really necessary at that particular point, but let's go on to the rest. Take it from there.
I mean, so whether or not the Camden tablets are necessary, I will say, how long has this honey water been sitting around?
True, yeah.
That it would be the determining factor as to whether or not I would use them. Because honey in its state, we've said this, in its natural state, and we've talked about this time and time again, is hydrophilic, meaning it is so concentrated that it will actually suck the water out of bacteria or fungus or nasty stuff that wants to ferment it and taint it, so to speak, and kill it just by dehydrating it. It's that concentrated. So that's part of why it's a natural antiseptic. People have been using it for treating wounds and things like that for literally thousands of years because of that property.
Yep.
Now, if you dilute it and you let it sit for a while, anything that kind of survived that might be hanging out, well, then it's got time to kick back up.
Yeah.
So, if the apiarists rinse their comb, as I understand this process, and there's got to be like a billion different ways to harvest honey and the wax and things like that, because I'm not planning to rinse any of the comb I've got. I'm going to sit it in a crock pot and let the wax and the honey separate, even if I boucher some honey in the process.
Yeah.
And I know that's a popular way to do it. That's why his name escapes me, but I want to say Eric, who Ryan knows, the one that sells the Melter honey.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's what he gets. Yeah. So, yeah, this is not a process I'm familiar with, but it makes sense to a degree. Now, if the apiarist has this watery honey water, whatever, sitting around for a week, then yeah, Camden tablet probably, because you don't know what's been able to pick back up. As far as using it, basically, this is not too far off from the process we use to make mead. We're mixing water and honey.
True. Yeah.
So, and it sounds like they've got the right idea with diluting it down to get the significant starting gravity that they are they're wanting to start with. Jeez. And going from there. So,
do it.
They're on the right track.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything they need to worry about. No.
Not really. Not do it. I mean, I agree with you, the Camden tablet thing. I mean, just, how long has the water been sitting? I mean, I would say if it's more than, say, 24 hours, then maybe you want to think about it, I guess. But if it's within the 24 hours, and hey, dump it in a fermenter and add your yeast, and see what happens. I mean, at least even during the fermentation, once you start producing alcohol, and honey, like you say, it's got a great kind of an antiseptic value to it anyway. So I don't know that too much is going to go wrong here. I mean, I get my honey from a local honey guy here, and it's raw. I mean, it's absolutely raw, because when I get my 5-gallon buckets, when I bring it home, a lot of times floating on the top are little bee carcasses and bee parts, and I just throw it all in the fermenter. You know, it's all going to get filtered out in the end. You know, it's all going to settle to the bottom. You know,
I've talked to some guys that swear up and down that the little extra bee parts in the mead just, you know, it makes it a little bit better.
Yeah, so what, you get little crunchy things in there. So what?
A little protein, right?
Anyway. Yeah.
Low fat, high protein.
Low fat. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, you know what? I just looked at the clock, dude, and we gotta drop it right there. Oh my God. I wish we could go on and on and on with this stuff. This is great. But we got tons more for the next show. So whenever Ryan gets back finished with that farmer up there somewhere in the West Minneapolis or West Minnesota, then we'll get after some more of it here. But hey, thanks for hanging out with us in this episode. And if you want to get on the show, it's easy enough. All you got to do is let us know what you're brewing. Email us, info@themeadhouse.com, or send us a message on that Facebook deal or the Twitter thing, both at the Mead House, and we'll set up a date and talk to you about what you're brewing. In fact, we're kind of in the process now of getting a couple of you booked. So in the meantime, happy mead making. That's it for this episode. Gee, dude, I guess I'm going to have to flip the lights off since Ryan ain't here. Oh, my God. Do I even know how they work? Anyway, Jeff slammed the door shut. I'll get the light. We'll see you next week for episode number, my God, 210 episodes. Can you imagine? When did we start this thing? I can't remember. What was it, 3.5 years ago? I don't remember the year.
It's closer to 5.
Oh, my God. Holy cow, 210 episodes. Oh, Lordy. Anyway, we do appreciate all of you being here and listening to us here at the house. But hey, we're going to see you next week for episode 210 right here at the house. We're gone.